The first house, what does it mean? As I said, it's considered a fire house because it's associated with Aries, and Aries is a fire sign. But in total, just to give you a general idea, and I'll talk more about the houses and you'll learn more about them. But in generally speaking, the first house is, first of all, it's your ascendant. It's a super important house. It's your ascendant. It's considered your rising sign. And simply, this is the sign that was rising to the east when you were born. And so it sets the pace for the rest of your chart. And all the other signs fall behind it after that. And the first house signifies your personality, your behavior. Quite often, the ascendant or the first house can overshadow a person's sun sign. Now, what is the sun sign? The sun sign is typically when someone comes up to you and says, well, what's your sign? And you give them a sign, you're probably talking about your sun sign, because that's usually the sign that most people are aware of. But the sign over the first house, or the rising sign, can overshadow the sun sign depending on what's going on in the chart. Well, how does this happen exactly? The rising sign, or the first sign over the first house, often represents how you deal with your environment. So, for instance, if you are a really outgoing person and you never met a stranger, you're always going out places, networking, getting to know people, and you enjoy that, you might have a more outgoing sign over your first house. Even if your sun sign is a more reserved sign. So this is how the sign over the first house can overshadow the sun sign. And it's interesting to see because sometimes when you look at a person's chart, there are other things that can overshadow the sun sign. And this is where sometimes I think there is confusion, because we look at a person's sun sign and they do something in particular, whether it's good or bad. And from then on, we say, well, this sign is like that. And the trait that they're referring to may not necessarily be attributed to that particular sign. It may have to do with a different sign. If you did their chart or saw their rising sign, you would see that's the sign that's over the first house, or that's the sign that's over that another planet is in. Just to give you some idea. So I feel like it's not hard for the sun sign to be overshadowed. And many times what you'll find, once you start looking at charts, you realize that a lot of times you're not just dealing with a person's sun sign, you're dealing with other things. So one of the first things you will look at is the first house, because that's typically the thing that determines how we deal with people. Another thing that really sticks out about the sign that's over the first house is this sign can represent physical characteristics. So basically what you look like.